Before we start, share in the comments how's your day going and where are you joining from? And let's continue. I was 33, but I felt older than the cold stone angels carved into the walls of that church in South Philly. Rain had just stopped, and the place still smelled like wet coats and incense. We were burying my grandfather, Arthur Quinn, my mother's father, and people acted like it was just another Sunday. I sat 2 pews back, hands clenched, when this guy in a tan coat and wireframe glasses stepped forward like he was announcing bingo numbers. Martin Leary, probate attorney. He cleared his throat and said, flat as plywood, "There is no will." That landed like a brick in my lap. Before I could blink, my father, Victor Hale, turned in his seat with this smirk like he'd been saving it for years. He leaned toward me, voice low but sharp enough to cut glass. "You won't see $1, Lucas," he said. "Ryan will carry the name." It wasn't even about money. It was the way he said it, like I wasn't even standing in the same room. Just background noise in a family I was born into. Ryan, my half-brother, sat across the aisle in some overpriced suit, spinning a silver pen between his fingers like he was already CEO of something. The look on his face, smug, like he'd won something he didn't earn. I locked my jaw so hard it hurt. I'd worked with Grandpa for almost a decade. Late nights, job site walkthroughs, coffee at 5 a.m. to prep bids. And now I was getting treated like some intern who wandered in off the sidewalk. The pews behind me started buzzing, quiet murmurs, shifting coats, a couple handshakes being passed down like business cards. Networking. At a funeral, I wanted to stand up, say something. Arthur always said, "Pay your debts, keep your word, protect what you build." But when I opened my mouth, nothing came out. My throat locked up. I just stared at the worn floorboards and listened to Victor greet people like he just won an election. When the service finally ended, umbrellas popped open like weeds on the church steps. People rushed to get dry. I didn't move. I stood by the grave until the groundskeeper gave me a slow nod. I nodded back. Didn't trust myself to speak. That night, I went back to my 1-bedroom in Queen Village, kicked off my shoes, and sat in the dark. The room was dead quiet, but Victor's voice echoed in my head like a broken jingle. "You won't see $1, Lucas. Ryan will carry the name." I didn't sleep that night. Just watched the lights flicker through my blinds while the box from Quinn & Co. sat in the corner like it was still judging me. When the sun hit the buildings across the street, I changed into a clean shirt, shaved, and walked into the office like nothing had happened, like my name was still etched into the foundation. The lobby lights felt colder, no good mornings, no eye contact, just the sound of shoes clicking away from me. I swiped my badge, nothing. The reader blinked red. I tried again, same thing. "Excuse me, Mr. Hale?" The guard behind the front desk didn't look up when he said it. "HR needs to see you. I've been asked to escort you." I should have walked out right then. But I followed him past the glass wall where I used to joke with procurement, past the kitchen where Arthur and I once hashed out a labor issue over coffee and sugar packets. Everything felt staged now, like I'd stepped onto a set where I no longer had a script. They brought me to the boardroom. Victor stood at the head like he owned the table, with his sleeves rolled and tie loose like he'd been working hard instead of scheming. The senior team was lined up on either side of the table. Nancy from finance, Kevin from ops, a couple of outside consultants pretending not to know what was about to happen. "Lucas has no role here," Victor said. Not loud, just final, like he was pointing out a fact in a spreadsheet. Someone near the end cleared their throat, and Ryan laughed, dry and fake. "Some people lead," he said, rolling that pen between his fingers. "Some people follow. It's in the blood." I didn't look at him. I stared at the water glass in front of me, where the condensation was pooling into a ring. My hands stayed flat on the table. No yelling, no throwing chairs, just numb. Victor turned to the others and added, "It's time to cut distractions. We need clarity moving forward." That word, distraction, landed like a spit in the face. I'd walked job sites in sleet, fought union delays, sat with Arthur while he coughed blood into a napkin, and still reviewed estimates. And now I was a distraction. Nobody said anything. Nobody looked surprised. I stood up, nodded once, couldn't trust my voice, and left without a single hand to shake. At my desk, I packed a cardboard box with the photo of me and Arthur at the Interstate 95 ribbon cut, my notebook, the company mug he gave me. Before I left, I slid my thumb drive into the back of my tower and mirrored my archive folder, everything I'd worked on, saved clean. I stepped outside, walked down Walnut Street in a drizzle that didn't care who I used to be. My tie was loose, my shoes felt too loud. Arthur's voice bounced around in my skull. "Stand tall, kid." But I felt 2 inches high. My phone lit up. Missed calls, messages, unread emails. I didn't check a single one. I didn't know what to say to anyone. I didn't even know what I was feeling. It wasn't just anger. It was worse. Emptiness. Like a floor had been yanked out under me. Back at the apartment, I set the box down by the window and collapsed into the chair across from it. The streetlights blinked on one by one, and I didn't move. My arms felt too heavy. My legs didn't care. I stared out at nothing until the window fogged. Then I got up and locked the door. I'd just started to drift off on the couch when someone knocked like they were about to kick the door in. I sat up fast, heart hammering, hands clenched for no reason I could name. Through the peephole, I saw her, my mother, Elaine, wearing a thin trench coat that clung to her shoulders, soaked from the mist, her purse clutched to her chest like it was the only thing keeping her upright. I opened the door, confused, still shaking the fog off. "Lucas, we don't have long," she said, stepping past me without waiting. Her eyes darted down the hallway, like she expected someone to jump out with a phone camera or a microphone. She didn't sit, just pulled something from her bag, a sealed envelope, thick and stiff, and placed it in my hands like it was dangerous. My fingers curled around it without thinking. It felt heavier than it should have. "What is this?" I asked, voice dry. My mouth hadn't caught up to the rest of me. "It's time they hear who you really are," she said. I blinked. "What does that mean?" She finally looked straight at me, no flinching, no looking past me like she always did when Victor was in the room. "Your grandfather planned for this," she said. "Victor lied, for years." The word Victor, without your father attached to it, made something tilt in my head, like the ground shifted half an inch under my feet. She went on. "Arthur gave this to me in case things went wrong, in case Victor tried to cut you out. He knew who you were, Lucas, and he trusted me to make sure you knew too." I stared at the envelope, still sealed, still unread. My fingers tingled. "I was scared," she said. "Always was, with Victor. But after what they did to you in that boardroom," her voice cracked for half a second before she swallowed it down. "I'm not scared anymore." She reached forward and wrapped her arms around me, tight and quick, like she couldn't trust herself to stay longer. Then she turned and walked toward the door. "Keep it safe," she said, one hand on the knob. "When the time's right, you'll know." She left without another word, just the soft sound of her heels fading into the hallway carpet. I locked the door and set the envelope on the table. I didn't sit, didn't blink, just paced around it like it might explode. The apartment was dead quiet, but everything in my chest was rattling. I ran my hand through my hair, circled again, stared at it, turned away, circled again. I didn't open it, not yet. I watched the sky turn from black to charcoal behind the blinds. The envelope sat there like it knew more about me than I did, and I just kept walking in circles, waiting for the night to run out of darkness. The papers were still in my backpack when I pulled up to the Hale House in Chestnut Hill. Every window glowed like the place was on display. I sat in the car for maybe 2 full minutes, staring at the front door, thinking I should just drive away and mail the documents. Instead, I zipped the folder tight and walked in through the side door like I belonged there. The smell hit first: roast beef, lemon polish, and money. Victor always made sure parties like this had silver tongs and staff that wore black. I passed 2 board members from Quinn & Co., sipping white wine beside a cousin I hadn't seen since I was 10. Everyone was smiling too hard. Ryan stood near the fireplace, shaking hands like he owned the bricks. 28 years old and already preening like a senator. He had one hand in his pocket, the other gripping a scotch, and that same pen still tucked behind his ear like it was part of his skull now. Victor clinked a fork against a glass and raised it with both hands. "Tonight's about legacy," he said, "about the next chapter of Quinn & Co., and the people who will lead it forward." Ryan stepped closer, grinning like he just got knighted. Victor kept going. "I'm proud to announce that Ryan will step into the role of vice president. He's earned it, and the company will be stronger with him, helping guide our future." Polite applause followed. Not loud, just enough to check the box. I stepped forward. "I have something the room needs to hear." Victor's eyes snapped to mine, that tight smile already spreading like it could stop what was coming. "Lucas, not now. Let's keep this a celebration." My mother stood up from her chair by the window. She didn't say anything, but she didn't sit back down either. I unzipped the folder and pulled the documents. "This is Arthur's statement," I said, holding the notarized page. "It names me, Lucas Quinn Hale, as his heir. Bloodline acknowledged, signed, dated, filed." The room didn't gasp or freeze. It breathed in hard. A wave of silence rolled from one side to the other, like someone had cut the music. Evelyn Park, chair of the audit committee, was standing near the bar. She set her glass down carefully and stepped forward. "Let me see the date," she said, "and the notary." I handed it to her. My hands didn't shake. I looked right at Victor, and for the first time in my life, he didn't look back like I was small. He raised his voice just enough to sound calm. "You're embarrassing yourself, Lucas. This is your grief acting out." Ryan muttered something under his breath about jealousy. I ignored him, but I caught the flicker in his eyes when a couple board members turned their heads. His smirk didn't come back. My mother finally spoke, loud enough for the back of the room to hear. "He's telling the truth. Arthur gave me that envelope because he didn't trust Victor to honor it." Victor turned on her. "Elaine, don't do this." She didn't flinch. "I've already done it." I walked over to the buffet, set the envelope right on the sideboard, and turned to the room. "You can all pretend this is nothing. Or you can face what Arthur left behind. His word is still in this room, whether you like it or not." No one clapped, no one laughed, but no one walked away either. The doubt had finally arrived, and it sat down like it paid for the chair. The house was still quiet when I got up, barely any light outside, and I already knew what I had to do. I pulled Caleb Morton's card out of the drawer, same one he handed me over lukewarm beef sliders at a builder's luncheon 3 years back. Back then, I didn't need a lawyer. Now, I needed a wrecking ball who could write filings in his sleep. We met that morning at a diner off Roosevelt Boulevard, where the waitresses called you Hone, and the coffee never ran out. Caleb looked exactly how I remembered him. Buzz cut, calm eyes, thick hands like they'd spent years doing drywall before law school. I slid the envelope across the Formica. "It's real," I said. He didn't say much at first, just read. Page by page, slow and methodical. When he finally looked up, he said, "It's strong, but not bulletproof." I nodded. I figured. "This letter gives you standing," he said, tapping Arthur's statement. "But not the keys. If there was a formal will that disappeared, that's your hinge. That's what we need to find." I exhaled through my nose. "You think Victor buried it?" "If he did, there's a trail. People like him don't do things clean. They leave marks, emails, wire transfers, schedules that don't line up. We dig, we'll find something." He leaned back, folding his arms. "But you should expect punches. Guys who hide wills don't stop at just hiding them." I didn't flinch. "Let's dig." We filed within the week. Caleb moved fast. Emergency injunction to preserve company records, especially digital archives. Sent notices to the board, locked down access logs, even filed for temporary estate review pending probate. He worked like a man who didn't believe in second drafts. I went through my own archives, old company emails, job site notes, hard drives stacked like bricks in my closet. I spent whole nights chasing threads, expense reports with gaps, travel logs that didn't match up, calendar entries scrubbed clean. The kind of brain burn work that makes your vision swim by morning. My mother stepped in like she'd been waiting 10 years for this. She texted me names, people who knew Arthur long before Victor showed up with a firm handshake and a plan to scale the brand. Old friends, retired foremen, one of Arthur's army buddies who said Victor gave him a bad gut 20 years ago and never spoke to him again. Caleb and I sat with them one by one. Every single person had a story, a suspicion, a moment that didn't sit right. Nothing explosive, yet, but all pointing in the same direction. Meanwhile, we built a timeline. Arthur's last hospital stay. The week Victor met with Harold Bent, the family's longtime estate attorney. The exact day the company's safe was audited, when duplicate records were allegedly destroyed in a compliance review. It all smelled too convenient. Quinn & Co. was a closely held corporation. Control followed the estate's voting bloc until probate settled everything. That meant Arthur's intent mattered, his heir mattered, and I was in the fight whether I wanted it or not. At night, my apartment looked like a blueprint shop exploded. Sticky notes covered the coffee table. Names, dates, transfer amounts, email subjects, notaries, initials. I had highlighters in 3 different pockets. I wasn't sleeping much, but I wasn't backing off either. It felt like framing a load-bearing wall, slow, exact, one stud at a time. I didn't know if the structure would hold, but I was going to finish it either way. Caleb called and said, "I've got someone you need to meet. She used to work the front desk at Bent's office. Name's Darlene. She doesn't want to be seen in any place with cloth napkins." We met her at a strip mall diner off Interstate 76. Place smelled like fryer oil and old tile cleaner. She sat at a booth with her coat still on, both hands wrapped tight around a fake leather purse like it held something heavier than lipstick and keys. "I saw it," she said before we even ordered coffee. "Arthur Quinn's will, signed, his handwriting, locked in Mr. Bent's office safe." I didn't blink. Caleb leaned in and kept his voice level. "You're sure it was signed?" "Absolutely. I watched him do it. The last time Arthur came in before he passed, I made copies. I logged it. Everything was proper." Her voice thinned. "Then Arthur died, and Victor showed up the next morning. Just him. Stayed almost 2 hours behind closed doors. Bent told me to take an early lunch." She swallowed hard. "Next day, the safe was reorganized. He said things were streamlined for transition. But the will, Arthur's, was gone. That cold thing in my chest finally snapped into place. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't guessing. They took it. Caleb didn't rush her. He nodded, scribbled dates and times, asked a few more questions about the office log and the witnesses. Darlene answered everything. Her hands never left her purse. "You understand there may be pushback," Caleb said, watching her face. "But we'll protect you. You're not alone in this." She gave a tight nod. "I know. Just don't let them erase him." We left through the back entrance. Caleb said he'd draft her a statement and put her on witness protection status in our filings. "That's our missing beam," he said. "That ties it." That night, I got home just after 10. As I came up the stairs, I felt it before I saw it. Something off. A slow engine hum across the street. I ducked behind the blinds and watched a black sedan idling by the hydrant, lights off. Windows tinted so dark they looked spray-painted. It didn't move. I waited 20 minutes. Every muscle in my body wound tight. Then it pulled off slowly, no rush, like it had seen enough. I opened the door and almost stepped on the envelope. No postage, no markings. Inside was a single-typed line, "Stop before you're sorry." My hands shook. I won't dress that up. They shook hard. I locked the door and checked it twice, then sat on the couch with every light in the place on. Called Caleb, told him everything. "That means we're close," he said. "They're rattled. You need to get out for a few nights." He told me to go to my mother's, said he'd file for emergency protection on Darlene's statement and push the motion through by Friday. He didn't sound nervous. He sounded focused, which helped. I packed fast, clothes, laptop, the folder from Arthur, kept my thumb drive on me, drove to Elaine's house with my heart in my throat, still checking the rear view like every set of headlights meant trouble. When she opened the door, she didn't ask questions, just pointed me to the guest room. I dropped my bag and sat on the bed, staring up at the ceiling fan. My body felt hollow, but my head was boiling. Arthur's voice came back. "Don't let anyone take what you've built." Maybe that's what honor gets you. Paranoia, sleepless nights, old cars parked across the street. But it also gets you proof, and now I had both. The courthouse in Center City looked too polished for what we were walking in to do. Columns, marble, brass signs. Like it had never seen family greed up close. It felt like dragging muddy boots across a white carpet. Caleb was calm, already flipping through his file when we walked in. He wore the same gray suit I'd seen him wear at the diner, same rhythm to his steps, like he'd measured this hallway a dozen times already. I just kept my grip on the folder in my hands and tried not to lock my jaw. Victor sat at the table opposite us, hands folded, back straight, like the building owed him a favor. Ryan sat to his right, shifting every few seconds like his collar itched. And Bent, Harold Bent, looked like he wanted to appear bored, but couldn't keep the sweat off his temples. The judge was older, glasses low on his nose, eyes sharp. He didn't waste time. "This hearing concerns the disposition of the estate of Arthur Quinn," he said, voice clear. "Allegations have been made of concealment of a legal will. Until the matter is resolved, control of Quinn & Co., a closely held corporation, remains under estate authority per temporary court oversight." Caleb stood, smooth as ever, and passed up our documentation. "Your Honor, we present notarized statements, estate letters, and supporting records, including a letter from the deceased naming Lucas Hale as heir, as well as a certified paternity acknowledgement signed and filed with Mr. Quinn's former attorney." The judge scanned the stack, then nodded. "Mr. Hale, please take the stand." I stood, legs heavy, hands tighter than I wanted. The courtroom lights made everything feel closer. I took the seat, looked out at the room, and opened Arthur's letter. "If you're reading this, kid," I began, "I'm gone. I never trusted Victor to do right. You carry what I built." My voice cracked once. I cleared my throat and kept going. "He called me his true heir. Said he left protection in place for when this day came." I looked directly at the judge. He didn't trust Victor, and he was right not to. Caleb followed by calling Darlene to the stand. She looked nervous but solid, hands steady as she swore in. When she said she'd seen Arthur Quinn's signed will locked in Bent's office safe, and that it vanished after a visit from Victor, the gallery actually gasped. I didn't know people did that in real life. Bent leaned forward, whispering fast into Victor's ear. Victor just kept staring at me like I was a mess he planned to have someone else clean up. When it was his turn, he stood, straightened his cuffs, and said, "Lucas is a product of confusion and manipulation. He was raised in my house but never carried the discipline required for leadership. The company and the estate fall to me by law. To my son, by natural order." I didn't mean to stand up, but I did. "You mean your order. Arthur's order is in writing. Yours is in your head." The judge didn't raise his voice, just looked at me and said, "You'll sit down, Mr. Hale." I nodded and sat. Caleb went back up. "We'd like to enter 2 bank transfers into the record," he said, holding up the printed statements. "One for $85,000, another for $42,500, both dated within a week of Mr. Quinn's death. One is time-stamped within 24 hours of Ms. Darlene's testimony about the will disappearing." The courtroom air changed. Bent stood, adjusting his glasses. "Those were private business expenses." "For what business?" Caleb asked. "Your firm wasn't retained by the estate, only by Victor." Bent paused too long. His eyes bounced from the judge to the floor to the back wall, like he was hoping for a fire alarm. Then my mother stood. She didn't raise her voice, just spoke clearly, right to the judge. "Arthur gave me the envelope the week before he died. He said if anything happened, if the will vanished, I was to give it to Lucas. And I did." The judge watched her, then nodded once. "Court will issue a temporary freeze on estate access, pending full investigation. All involved parties are referred for criminal review. This matter is not closed, but it will be thoroughly examined." The gavel came down. I didn't smile, didn't move. But for the first time in weeks, the ground under my feet didn't feel like it was about to give. I sat in my car behind the courthouse for at least 15 minutes, gripping the wheel like it might bolt. The ruling had come down clean. Arthur's letter, the paternity filing, the witness testimony, the bank records, they all added up. I was officially named the estate's voting representative at Quinn & Co. until the criminal case closed. Still, I had to breathe through it before I moved. My heartbeat didn't want to settle. When I finally pushed the door open and stepped out, the fall air hit different, sharper, realer. I didn't call anyone, didn't text. I just drove straight to the company lot, parked in my old space, and walked through the front door without knocking. The office smelled like sawdust, toner, and bad coffee, exactly how it used to smell when I was 16 and following Arthur through the job site folders every morning. For half a second, I hated myself for ever letting Victor make me feel like a guest here. I didn't call a press conference. No emails, no announcement. I walked projects. I checked punch lists. I thanked crews by name and shook hands with subs who thought I'd disappeared for good. I gave back the tools Arthur used: consistency, follow-through, and no theater. We froze 2 flashy bids that Arthur would have rolled his eyes at. Cut contracts that smelled like vanity plays. Paid 3 vendors who'd been waiting over 60 days. No questions asked. Quiet fixes, no speeches. The kind of decisions Arthur would have made while stirring his coffee with a screwdriver. It took 3 days before Ryan knocked on my office door. He didn't have a smirk this time. No suit jacket either. Just slacks, rolled sleeves, and eyes that look tired in the way people get when they finally realize they've been lied to. He stepped in slowly. I don't deserve the time, but I need to say it anyway. I looked up from the budget schedule and waited. I didn't ask enough questions, he said. At the party, at the office, I just let him tell me how things were. Victor used me. I know that now. I nodded once. So what do you want? I want to work, he said. Not lead, not talk, just work, earn something. I didn't soften. You start in pre-construction, estimating, takeoffs, material schedules. No title, no shortcuts. He nodded without blinking. That's fair. Monday, 8 sharp. He left the room like someone who knew the price of getting one last chance. That night, I called my mother, told her the ruling, told her I walked back in like I owned the floor, which I did now, but that wasn't the point. She didn't say anything for a second. Then I heard her cry. First time since Arthur's funeral. She caught her breath, then said, "Please eat something that didn't come in a wrapper." I promised I would. The next morning, Victor's name disappeared from the company website. No announcement, just gone. The office didn't react much, just got quieter. Meetings got shorter. Eye contact got easier. And somehow, the hallways felt wider. I stayed late after everyone else went home. Walked the corridor past the crew board, past Arthur's old desk. Stopped in front of his portrait, hard hat under one arm, chin lifted like he dared the camera to blink. I looked him straight in the eyes. "I'll keep it square," I said. "You have my word." Then I locked the door on my way out and didn't look back. A few weeks later, the news ran a 30-second segment about alleged will concealment and financial irregularities. They showed Victor walking into the courthouse in sunglasses. His lawyer did most of the talking, ducking every question like it was policy. I didn't give a statement. I wrote a 1-page letter to the staff at Quinn & Co. No fluff. Pay what we owe. Finish what we start. Only bid what we can finish. That was it. We brought in an outside auditor to sweep the books and set up quarterly compliance checks, because I wasn't about to let another envelope disappear on my watch. I stopped doing lunch meetings and started meeting vendors for coffee. Sat across from guys I'd worked jobs with. Told them straight, if I owe you $1, you'll get it. On time, no excuses. Ryan showed up with a new cost model a few days later. No folder, no speech. Just numbers. He handed it to me, stood quiet while I looked it over, then nodded when I passed it back with a few red marks. We didn't say anything extra. The angry emails from Victor's allies dried up. Then came the silence. I don't care which one I get, as long as the crews stay busy and the checks clear. I had counsel send out a formal notice reserving our right to claw back funds moved under Bent's advice. It wasn't dramatic, just clean paperwork with teeth in it. Then the city handed us a small riverfront job Arthur had chased years ago and lost by less than 1%. When the bid got approved, I didn't celebrate. I just picked up the phone, told procurement to schedule delivery, and made sure no one padded the numbers. On a Sunday morning, I grabbed a broom from the tool cage and swept the warehouse floor with the guys. No press, no photo. The floor needed it. The broom was there. That was enough. People think revenge comes loud. Mine didn't. Mine looked like balance sheets and signed delivery slips. Like steel-toed boots in dirt and vendors getting paid on 30-day terms. If Victor ever lies awake at night wondering where his grip went, I hope he checks the books. It's there, buried in clean accounts, finished permits, and doors that close square without slamming. One morning at the riverfront site, I ran my thumb along a jam on the west unit. It was off by maybe 1/8. I flagged it for a redo. Nobody argued, they fixed it before lunch. That was the job Arthur lost by a hair. We won it doing it his way. I'm not the kid who sat quiet at a funeral anymore. I'm the man Arthur knew I could be, and I'll keep the line straight for as long as I'm breathing. Would you have forgiven Ryan or made him start over somewhere else? Drop your answer in the comments. Before we wrap up, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and drop a comment. Even something as simple as great story means a lot to me.